Let's discuss now with someone who opposed the Iraq War, Senator Angus King. He's from Maine, of course. The independent senator serves on both the Intelligence and Armed Services Committee. Senator, no matter what you call them, assets, advisors, boots on the ground, Americans are once again at risk in Iraq. That's the reality, yes?
I think that is the reality, and of course all of us that go back far enough have heard that term advisors, and it doesn't create good memories. I think the president is trying to at least settle this situation over the next few days, settle down the Iraqi military, and also, as Barbara said, a lot of this is about intelligence, trying to figure out just exactly what's going on, where ISIS is, and what the strength is. But you're right. It's hard to be a little bit pregnant in this situation.
Well, and also it's about being straight with the American people. No boots on the ground. Boots are on the ground. No mission creep. This feels exactly like 1991, and I don't know if you've been watching our 60s series, but it's not to promote CNN product. It's just perspective. Vietnam, this felt like this in the beginning, and I'm not saying Iraq is Vietnam, but the American people are tired of the war, and it does seem like we're going the wrong way. Can you reassure them otherwise?
Well, I think the most reassurance is if there's any one person in the United States that doesn't want to get involved in a military situation in Iraq, it's Barack Obama. I mean, his big thing was winding that war down. He was against it at the very beginning. And I don't think he has any inclination to do it. The real problem is the Iraqi government. We need a government over there. The problem is Maliki is no Mandela. You know, Mandela took over and did immediate national reconciliation and didn't take revenge, didn't exclude, had an inclusive government, and South Africa has been a success. Just the opposite, and in a sense, the Iraqi government created the situation because what hasn't come through so much is that this ISIS group is very small, in the few thousands. But the reason they've been so successful is that the Sunnis in northern Iraq don't have any loyalty or connection to the government in Baghdad because they've been excluded and repressed and discriminated against. So here's what has to happen, in my view. We hope that ISIS overreaches. They don't like music and smoking and drinking, and women have to stay inside and cutting off hands, and they can alienate that Sunni population that they're trying to take over. At the same time, we absolutely need a more inclusive regime in Baghdad. Otherwise, I think it's pretty hopeless, and you're going to see three countries. I think the Kurds are quietly setting up their own country right now.
Well, so let's go with two natural follows here. The issue of the Kurds we'll save for another day because they're certainly less inimical to the U.S. than other factors here. It seems as though, as daunting as ISIS is, we are treating a symptom and the easier problem than the two main ones. One you just mentioned, the Iraqi government. Maliki needs to go. That's what people keep saying. But we're not really dealing with that head on, at least in a way that's public. And ISIS is only strong because of their base in Syria. That problem is still getting worse, and we're still not doing anything there. Are we addressing the main sources of our trouble?
Well, I think it goes one step deeper, Chris. If you think about it, we're dealing in a kind of geopolitical whack-a-mole. I made a quick list. Just, we've got al-Nusra in Syria, al-Qaeda, of course. We've got now ISIS. We've got al-Shabaab in Kenya, Boko Haram in Nigeria. This thing is going on all over the place. And I've been saying, as I listen to these briefings, we've got to have a new strategy. We're not going to be able to just kill these guys one at a time, because every time you do, two of them come back. We've got to be thinking more strategically. Chris, the real weapons of mass destruction in the world today are unemployed 22-year-old males with no hope. And if we don't try to get at the base of that in some way, this is just going to keep happening. And how much do we have to learn?
Well, it's true, Senator.
Where this keeps going.
However, Senator, you could say that's also a main problem we have in the United States of America, is young people without jobs and without hope. And my point in saying that is we have a lot to worry about, and the question becomes who is we. Excuse the grammar there when we talk about these foreign situations. Why is it just the U.S. going back into Iraq? Where is the calling for a Security Council meeting? Where is the international coalition to take on some of these battles?
Well, you're absolutely right. And I know that there are, the Secretary Kerry's been dispatched to the Middle East to talk to some of these other countries. Everybody's saying, yeah, we got to do something about this. You do it. One of the most interesting aspects of this is Iran. Because they're as much freaked out by ISIS as anybody else. They want to hold on to a Shia government in Iraq. The question is whether they're going to push the Shiites in Iraq to be more inclusive, to be more open, or whether they're going to say, oh, no, we just want a Shiite government, in which case that's only going to make it worse. And they've got their 200 or 300 people in Iraq. This is a crazy world where we're fighting against, we're on the same side as ISIS in Syria trying to depose Assad, and we're opposed to ISIS in Iraq trying to hold on to the government in Baghdad. I think it's got to be, the solution has to be political. I think if there's anything we've learned over the last 12 years is that it's not going to be military. And I don't know if you've noticed, but some of the guys that got us into the Iraq war in the first place are now criticizing Obama's policy. That takes a lot of nerve. Being criticized by those guys for your war policy is like being called ugly by a toad.
That's an insult to toads. I think that, while it is, almost laughable in a pathetic way about what's going on with the finger pointing, that's a reflection of the current political dialogue, that, the blame game is acceptable no matter what the premise. I think the lesson going forward, and why I hope to be able to come back to you, Senator King, is that we'll only know what we learned in Iraq when we finally design our exit in Afghanistan. Because, the idea of American presence, as distasteful as it is, John McCain says this better than I can, but if you look at the places where we've put our foot in, we usually keep a footprint there. And now the plan in Afghanistan is the same one that we put in place in Iraq. Will it lead to the same kind of trouble there? But that's one crisis ahead.
Well, that's the difference, though, because in Afghanistan we are talking about a residual force, but we've got to work out a status of forces agreement with the Afghanis, which we couldn't with the Iraqis, and that's one of the differences. But you're right, you can't. This isn't a switch you can turn off and on.
Senator King, thank you very much for joining us about this. We look forward to continuing the discussion with you because we don't know what this move is going to mean, except that for sure Americans are back on the ground in Iraq. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Chris.
All right.